It's been quite a while since we received another entry in the beloved Mafia series. The most recent installment, Mafia 3, was released all the way back in 2016, which was almost 10 years ago, god. With the announcement of the newest entry, Mafia The Old Country, and the devs stating that it'll go back to the franchise's roots, we got a little excited to dive back into the world of Mafia. But now that it's out, does it truly go back to what made the older titles great? Well, join us here at Game8 as we check it out. Let's get this part out of the way. Yes, the game is a relatively short experience as we were able to complete the entire story in around just 10 to 12 hours. But that's not to say that the short runtime is bad, as the story told in this entry may be one of the best ones to come out of the series. Instead of taking place in the bustling cities of America, the game goes back to the place where it all began, back to 1900s Sicily, Italy. You won't find tall skyscrapers and loud city streets here, only a countryside filled with turf wars and quiet vendettas lurking at every corner of this serene setting. You play as Enzo Favara, who, at the beginning of the game, works as a sulfur miner to pay off his debts and hopefully find a better life for himself. But as with any good mafia story, fate intervenes and he ends up escaping the mine and starts working for Don Teresi's family. This leads him to learn more about the inner workings of the family's business, and he slowly gets more integrated into the more criminal side of things. The premise is familiar in the way all good stories are. A nobody with nothing to lose stumbles into something bigger than himself. But it's the execution that makes it special, as Mafia The Old Country doesn't open with a bang, it opens with a quiet, angry breath. Now, we don't want to delve too much into the game's story as it is best experienced yourself. What we want to talk about is how the narrative does a great job of keeping you engaged throughout its short 10 hours or so gameplay. The Old Country doesn't just want to tell you Enzo's story, it wants you to live it. And it does this not through flashy cinematics or shallow mission markers, but through steady earned progress. Enzo's rise through the Teresi ranks is a slow burn in the best possible way. In each chapter, you're given just enough of a foothold, a name remembered, a job well done, a nod from someone who used to look right through you. And with every rung you climb, the story tightens. Your responsibilities grow, so does the danger, and so do the cracks. What's great about the overall narrative is that the plot never loses sight of its emotional moments, even when things get explosive. The tight pacing throughout its short runtime makes every plot point feel earned, but at the same time avoids wasting time on filler. The Mafia games have always excelled in telling interesting but grounded stories, and we're glad to see Mafia The Old Country continue this tradition. They weren't kidding about going back to the roots in this entry, as the game plays out more like the first Mafia game, which featured a more linear mission structure compared to the more open-world loop of the third game. This allows players to immerse themselves more in the game's story as you aren't bogged down by having to complete random checklists on a large map to progress the plot. Each mission has you travel to certain locations around Sicily to help take care of certain family business, and the game gives you quite a few ways to tackle these objectives. Some of these missions might need a more stealthy approach, sneaking into hostile territory using cover and distractions to slip past enemy patrol, while there are times you might end up getting in a firefight and must blast your way through the many waves of enemies to reach your goal. These moments are also enhanced by the many action set pieces that happen in between the objectives and do a great job of adding suspense and adrenaline to keep the linear mission structure from getting too stale. While sure, the core gameplay still has you sneaking around and combat plays out like your typical cover shooter, The Old Country, however, strikes a good balance between these elements and sprinkles in other ways to shake up each chapter's gameplay. A big example of this is that this game features boss fights and has you go toe-to-toe, or in this case, knife-to-knife, against certain characters in the game. It plays out more like a fighting game where you must watch your enemies' movements and counter them accordingly. These fights usually cap off each of the chapters in the game and serve as not only an engaging way for you to fight important characters, but also a way for you to take in certain key moments of the plot by slowing down the combat to a more personal level. Other examples of gameplay variety are the chase sequences, which feature both car chases and more grounded foot chases, and all these are great at giving a sense of urgency to the gameplay. Speaking of the driving sections, you'll also be doing a lot of traveling on your way to your next objective, and it's here that you learn more about the characters through the conversations they have as you drive around the countryside. The game even features racing in some parts to test out your driving skills. This calls back to the first Mafia game, where you also have car races as a sort of break from the action, with more action, but like it's in a car. But don't worry, as these car sections are more forgiving compared to the notoriously difficult ones found in the previous titles. With all that being said, one thing we'd like to point out is that the game's replayability is pretty limited once you finish the story, and doesn't really give you much incentive to go back and play through the game again. Unless you want to experience the story again, of course. You can explore the world freely after the credits roll, but the activities are limited to finding the many collectibles you may have missed and don't really offer much else in terms of side content. This may be a turn-off to some, especially with the game only being around 10 hours long. You'd expect a bit more in terms of side content to keep you going. But what they lack in length, they made up for in quality, and you can really see that with how well they delivered the main story. If we're being honest, the visuals feel like the only thing holding it back from being an amazing game, as while the visual presentation gets the overall atmosphere right, there are other parts of the graphics that make the game look almost dated in comparison. It doesn't help that the game suffers from visual bugs, as even on performance mode on the PS5, we saw quite a few pop-ins and frame rate issues, which really pull you out of the experience. Even some of the character models have some inconsistencies, as there are quite a few times when some of the important NPCs almost start to look the same after a while. Like there were times we would think, wait, who are you? During some moments in the story. The game also has this strange grainy look to it, which adds more to our opinion of the game looking dated. That isn't to say that all of the visuals are bad, as when the game looks good, boy does it look great. The way the lands of Sicily are rendered almost makes us feel like we're there. From the sun-soaked courtyards to the vast lands of the vineyards, the places almost have this sort of painting-like feel to them. The audio, however, is where the game truly elevates the experience, as it draws you into the world of the old country. While the soundtrack does a good enough job of providing some much-needed ambiance, it doesn't really stand out and is merely there to serve its purpose of setting up the scene. But I thought you said it elevates the experience. Actually, by that, we meant the voice acting. The voice acting is phenomenal, and there are quite a few standout performances among the large cast of characters. Enzo, as a main character, sounds grounded and soulful, which makes it easier to root for him to overcome his struggles.
We do not always get to choose what we do.
Suppose not. We can choose who we are.
Even the side cast of characters all deliver the lines very well. A great example of this is Enzo's mentor and Don Teresi's right-hand man, Luca. You would expect a man of his position to be cold and calculated, and yet his words have this strange warmth to them, which adds a lot of depth to his character.
You have some fight in you, Enzo, eh? Use your brain alongside it, and you'll go further than most.
The voice acting excels at making us truly care for the characters, and it is these performances that make the game's story a truly unforgettable experience. Mafia The Old Country is a game that touts itself as going back to the franchise's roots, and it does an amazing job of doing this in terms of both gameplay and narrative. With its strong writing, phenomenal voice work, and standout lead performance, all these contribute to bringing its story to life and make it an unforgettable experience, while its gameplay foundation offers a satisfying, if somewhat conservative loop of tension and release. The visual hiccups and the lack of incentive for replays weigh it down slightly, but the experience as a whole feels premium, polished, and meaningful. For fans of crime dramas or narrative-led action games, this one's an offer worth taking. That's why we here at GameAid are giving it an 86 out of 100. So what do you guys think of Mafia The Old Country? Did you like how the franchise went back to its roots? Let us know in the comments below. If you like the video, like and subscribe for more gaming related content. This has been GameAid, and we'll see you in the next video.